Congress is racing to avoid a government shutdown at the end of the month. Failing to do so would put thousands of federal employees out of work and put significant pressure on the U.S. economy. Our next guest, they are pushing bipartisan legislation to end the government shutdowns altogether. There's an actual legislative solution here that they've put forward. Joining us now, Senator James Lankford, a Republican from Oklahoma, and Senator Angus King, an independent from Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats. Senators, I appreciate your time. I want to dig in on the bill in a second, but just to start with the idea is, Senator Lankford, that right now, you guys, this isn't a new thing, neither the countdown clocks towards a shutdown nor this legislation. You've proposed this several times. You guys have been talking about this on a bipartisan basis for several years now. Do you feel like this moment is different because it seems like some of your colleagues in the House aren't just considering a shutdown, some of them seem to actively want it at this point?
Yeah, I don't know that anyone really wants a shutdown. We do want a solution to some of the issues that are going on, especially debt and deficit. All of us see the debt and deficit issue, and we're always looking for what is the moment that we can actually address this accelerating debt and deficit. But this is an issue on ending government shutdowns we've talked about for a long time. We do need to have the debate on debt and deficit. We do need to do the hard work of that, but we don't need to have a government shutdown. We have government workers that are not getting a check. We have chaos across the country as people can't call federal agencies. It actually spends more taxpayer money than it saves by a far amount. So it's wasteful on the taxpayer. It's difficult on the federal workers, and it's difficult on the American people. Let's have the debate on debt and deficit, but let's hold the American people harmless in the process.
Senator King, I feel like we talk about this every time we're within 2 to 3 weeks of the government shutdown. Everybody says, hey, that's a great idea. And then it never kind of moves forward. Why do you think that this legislation, this proposal, hasn't gained traction after the eventual solving of the shutdown problem?
Well, I think the problem is we get through a shutdown and everybody sort of relaxes and says, oh, that's done and we'll move on. The reality is this is becoming a regular occurrence. And as James Lankford said, it's very damaging to the economy. Thousands of jobs in Maine. People aren't there to answer the phone. Mortgages went down 13% during the last shutdown because there wasn't anybody there to process the federal piece of the mortgage process. So it has a really serious impact. We believe that this may be a moment when people are going to start taking a solution seriously. And what we're basically proposing is that there's no travel money. There'll be an automatic renewal of a continuing resolution every 2 weeks until we get a solution, but nobody leaves until we get to that solution. It's our version of lock them in a room till they get the decision made.
It's a very you're very cognizant of the dynamics of Congress, which is pain. Is usually what brings results, pain and deadline. Senator Lankford, in terms of the current state of affairs, Speaker McCarthy yesterday told his conference he thought he was going to strip out the Ukraine piece of the supplemental funding that they're trying to attach. Do you agree with that approach in the current negotiations?
Yeah, I didn't see the particular piece from Speaker McCarthy, but we do need to stand with the people of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine are in a fight literally for their lives at this point. The Russian army led by Putin is coming in and just slaughtering their neighbors. So we should stand with people who are being attacked on this. Now, we shouldn't have American troops on the ground, but to just ignore what's happening there and assume a war in Europe is not going to affect the United States is to ignore all of 20th century history. So trying to get a faster end to this war is much better for the American people and for the global stability.
And Senator Lankford, are you concerned at all that the move towards an impeachment inquiry just creates another hurdle, given the fact there's only 16 days left?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise in D.C. It just got noisier as well. And the conversation about an impeachment inquiry, that's going to be weeks and weeks and weeks in the process. As it appears at this point, they still have a long way to go to actually get to that vote. And then to any eventual vote, if they choose to be able to do impeachment, that's in the House and that's a process they're going to do. But that shouldn't affect the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Senator King, your name came up yesterday. There's a lot of attention on one of your colleagues, Republican Senator Mitt Romney, about a text that you sent him warning him of potential problems on January 6th. He wrote about that. He passed that along to Leader McConnell. I was wondering if you could kind of give some context from your side of how you sent that text and why.
Well, I was hearing from some friends in the Pentagon that there was some chatter on the internet. This wasn't classified. This was basically internet traffic talking about the possibility of some kind of violence here on January 6th. And Mitt Romney's name came up. As you recall, he was the only Republican to vote for the conviction of President Trump in the first impeachment trial. And when I heard his name, I thought I ought to let him know. I mean, it's a pretty poor friend who doesn't warn somebody who's a friend that they might be in danger. It was all rumors, and as I say, it was chatter on the internet. But even if there was, we all considered it a remote possibility at the time, I just thought I ought to let Mitt know.
Senator Lankford, you are a Republican senator who is known for working across the aisle when there are issues that align. There's no question about that. Yeah. What is it like to see somebody like Senator Romney decide to depart, and I think have some very critical framing about where the party is at this point?
Yeah, obviously everybody makes their own decisions in their own direction. He served as a governor. He was a presidential candidate for Republicans. He served in the Senate. He served in leading the Olympics in the past. He's been known to be able to work across the aisle. He's been one that's frustrated Republicans and Democrats alike at different points on different issues. So we have several members, Kyrsten Sinema, we have Joe Manchin. Quite frankly, my friend Angus King has frustrated both sides of the aisle at times as we all try to engage. We have a responsibility to be able to represent the people that we represent, not a certain party.
I'd like to chime in there. Mitt Romney's going to really be missed because he was a guy, he was so smart and so principled and thoughtful. He was a guy that you could go to and say, here's a serious issue, let's talk seriously about it without regard to the political ramifications. He's going to be a real loss to this body.
Just before I let you guys go, and I would put this out to both of you, would either of you be considering not running the next time you're up for re-election? Just wouldn't want to specify between either of you, but if anybody's up in a near-term race and hasn't made a decision yet, who may be from Maine, do we know?
Well, I am running again in 2024. I'm working at it actively. I have a campaign manager and I'm working at it and interacting. I'll be back in Maine tonight and over the weekend. So I'm hard at it because I think it's funny. I haven't sat down with Mitt Romney. He and I looked at the same issue and made opposite decisions. I just decided this wasn't a time to leave, wasn't a time to walk away, based upon what the circumstances are here. So I've decided to stick with it, and I'm going.
Yep. Thankfully, I'm 5 years away from that decision.
Yeah. No, I know. I appreciate it. Senator Lankford, Senator Angus King, we appreciate your time. The legislation, again, is not something that's new. You guys have pushed it several times, and yet we're back here every time. Maybe this time will be different. You guys are certainly giving that a shot. Appreciate your time, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.